Tuxedo Mask in Sailor Moon, and Darien, the Moonlight Knight, and Prince Darien. He had an ego problem, I think. But anyway, so I see some old faces here from Ontario. That's a long way to go. It's all good. All right, so does anybody have any questions about Sailor Moon or the process of when we did and how we made it? Because it was a pretty interesting thing, and if not, I can tell you how it was done. It was pretty cool. So anybody have any specific questions of Sailor Moon or anime? Go for it.
When someone described the concept of the show to you, how did it sound?
That's a good point. Okay, so you have to understand, when I auditioned for this, I didn't know what anime was. It was 1995, I think. And I was acting at the time, and just mostly on camera. And there was a woman who you all know without knowing was the director of Sailor Moon. She was the first English voice actress for Sailor Moon, and she was the director of Sailor Moon. But I didn't know this, and I was taking a microphone technique course from her. And she said, if working your reading, I think you could do like a really good, job at this career. And I'm like, I'm not really that great, whatever. So 2 weeks later, I get a call for an audition and I do it. And I walk away and my agent calls me and says, hey, congratulations, you got Sailor Moon. I'm like, that's great. What's Sailor Moon? And it turns out that it was this show, and I really had no idea what this was, especially back at that time. And it was just as the internet was just kind of waking on, like turning on. I was going to say waking up, but turning on. And it was a really, really interesting thing to see, anime in itself, because I had no idea what this character was going to be or what the show was going to be about. And then it was later on that I was on a streetcar. I always tell the story because when I was in the streetcar, after recording, maybe about 6 months after the fact, I was in Toronto and I saw a little boy with a tuxedo mask backpack. And I freaked out because I didn't know it was going to be this big. Nobody did. Like all of us, when we recorded this, we were just like, I don't know, it's kind of fun. I guess there's a lot of screaming and there's a lot of rose throwing. And next thing you know, this thing went huge. And my friend Katie Griffin, who is the voice of Sailor Mars, she has a similar experience where she was training Kung Fu at the time, and she was on, I think it was Spadina Avenue in Toronto, and she went downstairs to this Kung Fu place to get some stuff, and she turns her back and she sees this shrine of Sailor Moon stuff. And so she starts grabbing everything she could and puts it on the counter, and she was like, I'm Sailor Moon, I'm Sailor Mars, I'm Sailor Mars. And he's like, okay, crazy bones. So yeah, none of us knew what we were really getting into. And then now fast forward, I have to clear my throat for this, 30 years. 30 years now, the fact that we have been in the kind of public and pop culture lexicon is a pretty neat thing to see. So yeah, I had no idea what this was going to be like. It was pretty cool. And you had your hand up over there, buddy.
What made you get involved in Sailor Moon?
Well, I was just acting as a young guy, and and honestly, it was kind of by happenstance because I was taking that microphone technique course by a person who was the director of Sailor Moon, but she didn't tell me that. So yeah, I mean, talk about right place, right time. I think that's kind of how this career goes. You set yourself up for trying to do the best you can, but you don't really know who you're working with. So it's always a lesson too, is be real kind to people because you don't know who they're going to be one day. And maybe that person is going to be somebody who will give you that break you've been looking for. And I would certainly say that was my break, if I had one at all. Yeah, go ahead.
How much did you know about anime prior to doing Tuxedo Mask?
None whatsoever. And I would say I could probably speak for almost the entire cast. None of us did. And that was what was kind of such an interesting growth period through this time of voicing the job and then seeing it go on air on YTV at the time. And then, we really didn't have an idea because Dragon Ball Z, you have to remember, was kind of about the same time. And I think for all of us, it was a bit shocking because we didn't know much. And my agent at the time, this guy, Steve Young, awesome guy, he calls me one day and he says, hey, do you want to go to an anime con? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, no, I think it's like one of those convention things, you know, where people like, and here's the weird thing, they didn't really dress up then. There was no cosplay. It wasn't really cosplay, but everybody, you know, congregated and was still kind of doing it, and it was. And I said, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, actually, they want to fly you out. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? He says, yeah. I said, well, Steve, do you think they could fly both of us out? And he's like, I don't know, I'll check. So he calls back a few minutes later, and Steve goes, guess what? We're going to San Jose, California. So I think it was like 1996, and I go to San Jose, California to this convention, never been to one. We go there, and there was really not a lot of cosplay. And in fact, it was flipped. All the people were kind of dressed like me, and the cosplay people were like, ugh, what are you dressing like that for? And then we get into this place, tons of people, and I had no idea that it was going to be like this. And of course, I see, you know, then you would see artwork, and you would see they would show a lot of like the anime and manga, you know, stuff on the screen. I'm like, I had no idea this stuff existed at all. And still, going through the years, and I'll get to it in a second, going through the years, I'm so surprised how much creativity is within the anime realm. It is probably the most kind of punk rock style of animation out there, you know? Go ahead.
So, did you also voice Artemis? I think you did.
I did not voice Artemis.
Ah, no. Okay.
No.
Oh, I know.
No, I only did the iterations of this guy, and I didn't even get to do any bad guys. I always wanted to do some bad guys.
You would have been a great, like, Kunzite or, like, Nephrite, to be honest.
I would love to.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
I want to be a bad guy.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, I'd feel taller, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience because what's not typical, like doing dubbing, at least the way we did it, we didn't get to act with any of the other voice actors except for Sailor Moon and Sailor Mars. We'll sometimes go and do sessions together. But how we technically did the voicing of this is a thing called Rhythm-a-Band. I'm sure some people know about this, but this is...
I've heard about it.
Yeah, so what it is, it's really fascinating actually. What they would do is they would have an 8-foot by, say, 4-foot screen, and it's kind of like professional karaoke.
Oh.
And the producer would take clear 35mm film and actually handwrite our dialogue. And they would broadcast that dialogue on a reel. So it would kind of be like, you know, karaoke, follow a bouncing ball, right? But the difference is that we would have multiple characters on this. So my character would be written in black, Sailor Mars would be in red, you know, and what so on. So there would be some differentials, but it would be this scribble of stuff going by you, and you would like kind of get caught up in it. And it was so hard at the beginning, and at first I was scared because I was not a very good reader. And in fact, when Tracy Moore, the director for me, said like, you need to work on your reading. So I want you to get the newspaper sent to you at your house, and I want you to read it aloud to work in your eye-mouth coordination. And I did that for a while, thinking, we'll see, whatever. And I am getting the job. And then it's definitely a case of be careful what you wish for, because now I'm like, oh, it's amazing, I just scored a series, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to read. And and then, you know, you're in the studio and you see the people behind the glass just like that, looking at you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta do it. So it was I would say the first 6 episodes took me a while. It was kind of like learning to drive standard, right? After a while, you start to get into it. Okay, I know what the clutch is doing, I know what's going on. All right, here we go. And then by the 7th or 8th episode, it became a bit more common to me, and I understood how to read it. And it was a really interesting thing because we weren't voicing the roles with each other. We had no balance, right? And it was also really funny too because on that Rhythm-a-Band, so what would happen is we would have the lines like, hey, meatball head. You would say just a gigantic H go by, right? But for things like sword slashes or a punch or this and that, it would just be in a bracket or a parenthesis, and it was a reaction, like reaction. but we would never do, we wouldn't get rehearsals. They said, let's just do a cold pass. Let's just run through your session, and then we'll go back and do pickups for the stuff that kind of flubbed on, and you definitely flub on them. And the reaction ones was hilarious because you'd be in this scene, you'd be doing this and this and that, and all of a sudden you're like, ha-ha! But it was actually you were kissing or something, and then like, oh, I'll have to redo that because that does not match up.
So it's like ADR.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah,
It's
I've done like one class of ADR.
Yeah, it's like it's totally like ADR.
Yeah, but there's no beeps.
Exactly. There's no 3 beep, and I like 3 beep is really great because
You know what to do. Beep, beep, and then
you
read.
talk. And then you kind of just try to
Match.
match the embouchure. Yeah, but it was surprising how quickly you got used to it because I was a little worried at first because you have a television screen to look at for the reference picture.
I've never seen that before.
And then I would say it was definitely a skill I didn't know I possessed, but it's one of those ones that you're glad you did when you're in the thick of it. So yeah.
That was.
Anybody, yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I met Tracy Moore. Really
You met
nice.
Tracy Moore?
Yeah, I
She-
did.
She lives in BC.
Yeah, she. I met her at this con called Geektopia, like before the pandemic happened. Really nice lady.
She's super nice. Well, she was
Yeah.
also the voice of the Care Bear. A lot of the
Princess
Care Bears.
Peach.
Yeah.
She
but
voiced
like,
Princess
even, like,
Peach,
the
yeah.
Original, like the
Oh,
original
yeah.
Care Bears series from Nelvana.
Never
like,
seen that one.
She is like, she's the type of person like, okay, so there are different levels of voice actors. There are lucky ones, and there are ones that are really skilled, right? Like Mel Blanc and whatever. But Tracy Moore is one of these people that she's kind of like an amusement park in her mind because she is so good. And a lot of times when people do multiple voices, what they'll do is they'll do the first pass as the one character, and then they'll wind back to the start of the show and do the other character. She's the type of person that can do one line in one character and another line. It's kind of like Seth. What's his name from Family Guy? Seth. Thank you.
Yeah, that guy.
He's genius, right? Like that is because he just breaks
talks
in his
to
mind
himself.
and goes to it. Yeah, it's amazing. Either that or he's really crazy, which is probably.
Probably.
I think we're all psyched.
Yeah.
Everybody's like crazy. But yeah, very interesting process. But talking about like the outreach from Sailor Moon for us, that anime con that I went to in San Jose was kind of the start of it for us because we didn't have the internet and there was no YouTube back then, and so we didn't really realize that the spread of how far this show went. And I've been lucky enough through my time to go as far as Australia, to Malta. Wow. And going to Australia was a weird one because it's really far. And I get there to the hotel, and they're like, oh yeah, nice to see you. Okay, what are you here for? I was like, oh, I'm here for a convention. Like, oh yeah, convention, yeah. Like, and yeah, and she goes, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I do. It's silly. I did an animation voice a long time ago. I said, oh yeah, what's that? I said, Sailor Moon. She said, Sailor Moon? What? And like, what? And then there's like, it was like they had the same girl working at the front desk, and they all went, Sailor Moon, Sailor Moon, Sailor Moon. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Like, I said, you know that show? And I like, and she's like, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And then to think that we were so far away and people actually knew the show is so mind-boggling because we don't, like, as voice actors, and specifically our cast in general, most of us are from Toronto or from Canada. And, we're pretty humble as far as understanding, where we sit in the whole, entertainment life. And just to have something that we're attached to be so internationally known, and especially now for 30 years, it's like kind of locked in pop culture a bit. Like anytime I see someone downtown wearing her buns like that, it's like, oh, that's Sailor Moon, it is. It's like, it's so hard not to call her Meatball Head, but yes.
But she's called, in the Japanese hub, she's called Dumpling Head.
Yes.
Odongo Atama.
Yeah.
Odongo Atama.
And they had to do so much, and also just talking about our version versus the original.
Oh yes, they changed.
But the problem was we had so much censorship in the 90s where Canadian television wasn't allowed, like they weren't even allowed to show a kid with riding a bike.
Oh yeah, Susan Roman said that.
That's right.
Yeah, are you friends with her?
And I think they had to take my weapon away, so they gave me some shrubbery to throw at people.
A shrubbery?
Yeah, a rose.
Yeah, he had a cane in the original. Like, yeah.
So something that might hurt versus something that won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have two questions. Are you friends with Susan Roman?
Yes.
Oh, you are. That's
I
great.
travel with her. I've been on.
I
about
hear
100
she's
planes
super
with Susan
nice.
Roman. What's that?
I heard she's super nice.
She is super nice. She's
Yeah.
super nice and she's very, very talented. Like she was an on-camera actress as well in her earlier days. I think she's also the voice
talked
in
about
Heavy
that.
Metal. She's the lead in Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
But she's awesome, and she's one of those ones I'm talking about. She's pretty like she has a different level of voice actor ability. Like she really has a skill. She has a very unique voice too. It's a little bit raspy.
Yeah, that's why I like her character.
And it's like, it's got such a signature. And like, there's sometimes when I hear her on other shows, I'm like, oh, that's Susan for sure it is. And I've been in many planes with her. She doesn't like flying, so every time I fly with her, my leg always have like claw marks in it after we land. But that's okay.
My second question is, I think I asked you this, have you seen Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon? If not, would you actually see it? Would you actually watch the series?
I haven't seen it yet. I would watch it. I would watch it with my kids. My kids are just like getting to the age where it's like kind of cool to see.
Teenagers?
Yes, just.
Just teenagers.
Just.
It's, like I said, not bad, not the worst. Okay. It's hokey. It's kind of like, it would be compared to the Batman live action series from the 1960s. So that it has that hokey acting for the Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, that kind of hokey acting.
Right.
Because, like I said, the cast, they had to go through, from what I've seen from the documentary, 400, for the auditions, like 400 auditions.
400 people.
Yeah, 400, like a lot, during the summer of like 2003, so early 2000s. Yeah. And so the 5 actresses they're all teenagers because, that's, the Sailor Scouts are teenagers. So they picked, all the actresses were in like, they're 16, 17, and they didn't have a lot of acting experience. So that's why the acting's a little, in there.
The way I look at it is I think it's great because it still keeps our brand alive, right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting.
It is. And also, fun fact, the lady that voices Luna in the Japanese dub voices Luna, the plushie doll in Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. She voices her. But
so
then
some crossover.
And they got a child actress to play Luna as a Sailor Scout. It's really cool. They're plushie dolls.
I gotta say, you guys know your stuff.
They're plushie dolls.
Yeah. Would I cosplay again? Yes. I would definitely do it. In fact, I was trying to find a tuxedo mask for this weekend, but I didn't have it because I got told like last minute there was gonna be mask policy. So I thought it would be kind of cool to have a tuxedo for the mask, but I couldn't find it. But apparently the Vans have the new shoes out, right? So
yeah, they do have the Sailor Moon shoes. Yes. Yeah. My friend told me about that.
I tried to get those too in time, but they didn't have my size. But yeah, it's interesting. It was a very. Obviously, I get the fact that I'm up here talking to you about this for something that I did when I was 20. I was 20. I was 19 because
wow.
years. So yeah, I'm almost So do the math. I'm almost 49. Yes, go ahead.
If Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon could be dubbed, would you dub Tuxedo Mask / Mamoru?
We were
that would be so cool. They could dub it.
Reboot, we didn't know. We didn't really know a lot when they were doing the reboot. We got to meet the new cast when we were in Los Angeles in 2014 at Anime Expo. We got to meet everybody. But yeah, I think we've been asked the question a lot. Would I have liked to redo the voice? Yes, because I would get to do it without the censorship. And I would have, it would have been a really cool experience. That being said, it doesn't take away from what we were able to do at the time, and I think we were lucky and really super fortunate to be able to do what we did when we did it, because this is look, I get to meet you people and get to go downstairs and see so much art that is inspired. I've met so many people who have started their animation careers off of this. I've met some people with stories from this show, or because of this show, that would either make you really laugh or honestly make you cry for days. How impactful this, for whatever reason, this show did have had on them. Yeah, go ahead. So
what I meant is the live. By Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, I mean dub over Tuxedo Mask's line from Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, if it could be dubbed in English, you know what I mean? Sure. That's what I meant. That would be so cool. Yeah, and cool. My favorite YouTuber, who has 1 million subs. He got inspired by anime and video games. And he created his own series, which cost him $1 million. He spent, lots of voice acting, called Meta Runners. Basically, it's kind of inspired by anime. It's not anime, but has like anime dating simulator. It's basically if esports ruled the world. That's basically the premise of the show. If esports ruled the world, it's called Meta Runners. It's a pretty good series.
I like though that people can
Make their own.
Like now, like when we did Sailor Moon, they're like to get something into production and into the masses, way too expensive. Like it was multi-million-dollar ventures. Like the Flash Gordon series was 2.6 million. No, it was 26 million for 13 episodes, right? So that's a lot of money, and that doesn't mean that didn't even get the eyes or the people seeing it. Same with Sailor Moon, them being on YTV, that was a lot of money to get to broadcast all that. But the way YouTube is now, and the way that technology has met up with that, it is a perfect storm for people who really want to do their own things, can become incredibly well known, and also get their art out there. I love how accessible that is. Like talking about that person who created
Meta Runner.
The Maze Runners.
Meta Runner.
Meta Runners.
It's about professional gamers.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few things to that. So a few favorites. First of all, was This is the line, and I'll tell you why it's really important. So this. Hey, Meatballhead, what are you doing here? I thought for sure you'd be over there with your friends, especially since you're acting like total fools. Now, the reason why that one is important to me is because when I went to audition for Sailor Moon, that was actually the line that they had through my headphones. And they said, listen, we want you to emulate this. Don't try to be his voice. We don't want to replace him. We just want a version of him. And that was the actual line that got me Sailor Moon. So for me, that was the key that opened the lock. As far as favorite session, well, there was. This is kind of a weird. I will tie in some real world stuff into it, anyways. One of the favorite sessions was back in the day. I was wearing a pager because it wasn't cell phones yet, and I had a pager on, and I was recording. I think it was probably the first 10 episodes, and it was early. It was spring. I know this because I was riding a motorcycle at the time. It was cool because Tuxedo Mask also rode a motorcycle. And it was a Kawasaki Ninja, and I had just finished I was recording the session, and during a Sailor Moon session, I got a text that said 00000, and what that was my brother telling me that he had a daughter. And so in the middle of actually me reciting a Tuxedo Mask line, I became an uncle. And I had to stop. I said, guys, I have to stop for a second. And they said, what is it? I said, I gotta go. My brother just had his baby. And they're like, oh my God, you must go. Nicole was French. She said, go, Toby, go. And so I remember running out of the Sailor Moon session, throwing on my leather jacket and riding on my Tuxedo Mask sport bike to the hospital, and then seeing my niece for the first time and bawling like a baby. And that was my favorite, as far as it memorializes a session for me. And then as far as kind of funny moments was the director, or Nicole, the producer, would sometimes fall asleep behind the desk, and you wouldn't know it. And so you would do this whole amazing pass, and you thought you were really good at it, and all right, and you turn all right, how was that? And you wouldn't hear it because there's the two-way glass, but I'm okay, she needs to sleep. All right, that's great. So then you'd have to go outside and hey, Nicole, oh, what? And yeah, she'd wake up, and then we'd have to retake. So those were kind of my funny little moments. And I mean, as far as the favorites, my favorite episode is Day of Destiny, when they're in the elevator, when she realizes that he's Tuxedo Mask. That was cool for me because I was come on, let's do this, reveal yourself. So yeah, that was Day of Destiny. I think it's episode 30, maybe.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah. I like that one a lot because it's just really cool. Because then from there on, it was okay, it's been said. Now we can go forward. So yeah, that was it.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of interesting too because I have a lot of friends who watch it on YTV, right? Like PJ Phil or would announce, Sailor Moon's coming up next, this and that. And I have so many people say that they had to either wake up early, it depended on where they lived in the country, but they'd have to either wake up early or race home from school in time to see it. And it was also back in the setting of the VCR days. So it was,
Yeah.
make sure that tape was
VCR.
fresh. But yeah, it was such a lucky position to be in. I think that's the best way I can say it. Yeah.
The VCR, that's so awesome. I remember my aunt recording some of the episodes of Sailor Moon S, like season 3, with when Sailor Uranus and Neptune were introduced.
Yeah.
Fun fact: they're a lesbian couple in the manga.
Right. I know.
and
Before they were
Japanese.
just cousins.
Yeah, it's bad censorship. They
When
weren't.
cousins get together and there's hearts and stuff like that, that's not cousins.
Yes, that's more incest.
Shouldn't be.
That's
I'll
just
say it
like
on the
so
record.
weird. But the
Shouldn't
thing
be.
is,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the website is called. It's kind of like Fiverr, except it's for voice actors. And
Oh, is that voicebank.com? Is that the one I'm thinking? Or
I'm not
voice?
really sure. Have you considered doing something like that?
Oh,
Like,
Well,
Cameo.
because I'm union, I actually can't work on those sites. I wish I could.
Oh.
But yeah, I know. I think Fiverr. There's stuff like that. There's Fiverr, and then there's I think it's voicebank.net.
probably.
Cameo.
Is it? Well, Cameo is.
Cameo, right.
never
I
heard
love
of
to
it.
do Cameo. Those are fun because you get to like kind of do shout-outs for people and whatever. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my 2 questions. Sorry for the interruption. My 3 questions. Have you seen the original Japanese dub of Sailor Moon?
Yes, I have.
Do you like it?
When we first watched it, we didn't understand.
They had to
what
be
was
English
going on. We didn't know the
translation.
story. Like we didn't, but it's kind of fun after the fact because a lot of the conventions we go to will have people show us like certain clips and stuff like that. I haven't seen the whole series, but it was really interesting to hear the original Tuxedo Mask.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm in no translation to what he did. It was just my version of what they wanted me to do. But it's really neat because I've always said at a lot of these panels that people ask like, what would be if you had one thing you could do differently, or if you could do that you didn't get to do for Sailor Moon, what would it be? And I would always say I would love to meet the original Tuxedo Mask.
You met him,
It was only a
didn't
few days ago that I found out that he's going to be here.
So wait, this is gonna be your first time meeting him?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! I thought you already met him already.
No.
Oh.
So and both of us, and it was funny because I met his handler this morning in the hotel, and she's like, he's really excited to meet you. I'm like, that's great, because I'm excited to meet him.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very cool thing.
I'm gonna be asking him a lot of Super
It's a
Mario
bucket
Brothers
list thing, for
questions.
sure, yeah.
But my
Big up for Desmond.
question is, have you been to the Sailor Moon Cafe in Japan? There's a Sailor Moon
I know.
Cafe.
We heard about it.
It's
We went
so
bonkers
cool.
About it. And it's funny
so
because
cool.
Linda Valentine, who is one of the voices of Sailor Moon, her daughter actually lives in Tokyo now. And when she first went over there, and she was billeted by a family, she was like, my mom is the voice of Sailor Moon. And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Like, at first, like, really? Like, no, it really is. And then they actually got to go, I think, to the Sailor Moon Cafe, which
Oh, you should. It's real. I've never been there. I've only been to Tokyo, Japan once in
Yeah.
2000, in the
No,
year
I love to go to
2000.
Japan, for sure.
Yeah, I've only been there once. And
I think my
yeah.
closest of me getting to go to the Sailor Moon Bistro is going to be getting those vans, right?
And there's like there's supposedly a huge poster of Sailor Moon on the actual moon, illustrated by Naoko Takuchi, the creator of Sailor Moon.
Crazy. I know there was some.
Yeah.
There's also, I think there was a museum or something. that
Yeah,
did
there's also a
it.
museum. There's
apparently there's a massive collection. That would have been very cool to see.
I think there's a illustration of Endymion and Serenity.
Crazy.
Yeah. And my third question is, do you know Kirby Morrow?
You know what?
He passed away.
I think I have met Kirby, but it was years ago, and it was very brief. Because I had seen the name before, I'm like, I think I met Kirby before. Yeah.
He passed away.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was at Anime North, maybe.
God
I think
bless
it
his
might
soul.
have been then. But it's funny because a lot of us, like I said, because we don't get to record with each other,
That
a
sucks.
lot of us don't know each other unless we go to these type of things. So it's as much as these are neat to meet the people who are kind of into this show, it's also neat to meet other workers who are doing this job because, yeah, otherwise we would be like two ships passing the night on the street.
Oh, you're like, hey, how's it going? Bye.
Yeah, except for they'd be like, bye. I'm like, wait a second, you're a voice actor. Like, no.
No, I actually met him, before he passed away, like years ago.
Yeah.
And he was doing like one of those like trial voice acting classes, and I got to be in one of the recording booths, which was super cool. And when I saw him, like I was fangirl. I was like, oh my God, it's Kirby Morrow. Oh my God, it's Kirby Morrow. And
It's
it's
really
like,
cool to be able to.
it's
if you
so
get in the booth
cool.
with people who actually do it, or even like the casting people.
It was
who
so
want to get
cool.
into it. It's really good to kind of at least try to rub elbows with the people who are going to be making the decision, or maybe because otherwise they might not ever see you. So
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. If you can't ever know these people, or if your agent isn't connected to them, there's no way you're going to get cast, right?
I'm sad he died.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, so it's I think that's also it too. Like you have to understand the audition process is really interesting, because if you think about it, say you have a demo tape, right, or a demo reel or whatever. Well, when directors are working, they have no time to listen to demo reels, and when they're not working, they really don't want to listen to demo reels, right? So it's this weird juxtaposition, because when do you do that? So it's like a hard thing to do to break through that wall. So it really is kind of nepotism is a big thing. It's like it is definitely who you know.
Yeah, networking. That's what my friend said. Something
Absolutely.
about networking.
Well, this business is people.
Yeah, business
I mean,
and
that
business.
is the ultimate currency is people, and that's why I also say what I said before. Like, make sure you're really nice to everybody, because you just don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, you try to burn. I mean, listen. There's always going to be tensions in certain
Agreed.
times, but it's really good to try to keep things nice, because you also don't know what people are going through at the time. Like I've worked with, like I was saying, I've worked with certain stars. I've worked with a few stars that were really a few rough around the edges. Most of them are absolute sweethearts, and some of them are kind of tough. And you know what? Maybe it's just because they're having trouble with fame. There's an element of life that's tough about that, and I don't know how well, because I don't have that. I don't know. I can't speak on that.
I can't believe you met Mr. T. That's awesome.
Mr. T was awesome.
Was he super nice? Oh my goodness.
So here's the thing. So there's
so
actually
cool.
Nell Vanna that did all the Care Bears originally, all the animation stuff.
T.
That for a while in the 80s, they were doing live action stuff. So there was a show called TNT right after he did the Mr. T, or the A-Team, and he came up to Canada and did, I think, 2 years there. And I did two episodes, separate episodes, but I did the guest star as the young kid on it. It was always a show where like Mr. T would help this like kid who's gone down the wrong path, and they,
oh yeah,
fool, I'll help you. And he was really cool, because when I first worked with him, the first episode, I didn't really get to know him too well, because I was working with another kid, and we did a bunch of scenes with him, but he was not as accessible, just because the way that the scenes were written. But the second episode that I got to do with him was, I was this kid who was kind of having a rough time, because I think my dad left, and I was a single mom. I had a single mom, and I was kind of doing some bad stuff, and I got to go in the boxing ring with him. And I got to actually go and box, and it's so cool, because I mean, coming from Rocky, and then having to step in the ring with him, and like we shot for about 8 hours that one scene. And the thing is, Mr. T he's big, he's not very tall, but he's like built like a truck, and he's awesome. But at the time, he was discovered by a guy named John G. Avildsen, who was the writer of Rocky, or the producer of Rocky, and he was just a bouncer in Chicago. And he had this really extreme look, and John G. Avildsen was like, you could be somebody. And so he basically ferried him into show business. But at the time when I met Mr. T didn't read very well. And so he would travel with his buddies, and his buddies would basically read for him, and then we would keep the cameras rolling, and they would whisper his lines to him, and then he would say them verbatim. And so, and it was a really interesting thing to see as a kid, because I didn't read very well either as a young kid. So it was kind of nice to see that I felt like I had opportunity, and I felt like I wasn't alone, and he was very cool about it. And I remember there would be scenes like, you ain't fighting, you flailing, what was that? And the guy would whisper, you ain't fighting, you flailing. And then, we'd do the scene, and after the fact, we'd sit down. I remember one time we were sitting on Lansdowne Avenue in Toronto, and we were in between takes, and people were getting his autograph. And then they started to get quite a lineup. He goes, all right, everybody. He goes, I'll give you an autograph, but you have to get little brothers here too. And he was so good because he was very giving with his fame, and in fact, for his days off, he was a really gentle guy, and he would go to Queen's Park, which is right in the center of Toronto, and he just wanted to sit on a park bench, and he'd wear a toque so no one would know who he was, and he'd just feed the squirrels, and he loved it, and he loved nature. And he was a really sweet guy, and he was very giving. Like, he didn't, he had he didn't have a bad bone in his body. He's like, who you think he is, that's who he was. And it was a really cool experience to work with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very neat guy. I definitely like to see him again. And I still actually he signed something for me. I think it was Thanks Little Brother and like Mr. T. And I have that in my bedroom in a frame.
Isn't
it's like, that's a once in a lifetime thing.
He's still, is he dead or still alive?
He is alive.
Oh, thank goodness.
He had a cancer scare in the 2000s.
Because I thought he's like, oh no, he's dead.
Because it didn't look good. The prognosis did not look good for him at that point. But he pulled through, and he's a pretty great guy. But I think he's like, because of that, he's taken the heat off of his career and doing his, just kind of living as you should, you know.
Yeah, like I said, when I met Kirby Morrow, at that free trial of like the voice acting
Yes.
lesson, I did do a character voice too, and then him and I spoke to each other in our characters' voices.
What
in
was
the
your
bed.
character voice?
I do like Zelda fan dubs,
Okay.
Legend of Zelda
Do you want
fan
to do a line?
dubs.
Go for it.
Oh, really?
Do it.
It sounds weird.
Do it in the mic. Is that
Oh my God, no.
Come on, try it.
Oh,
Come on, we're all friends here.
oh no, I'm
Do
gonna
it.
get laughed
It's your
at.
moment. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So I said this to him.
Are you sure you meant to be doing that? Snarling and glaring at me? Well, that's too bad. I was planning on helping you, if you were nice.
See? That is cool.
But then I have to add I do the dubs now, and because I'm a huge Zelda fan. Besides, I like Sailor Moon and Legend of Zelda.
That takes
So
a lot of guts to do that, by the way. Good for you. You did it.
there's a song from the 80s called "Don't Give Up Courage," Makanai de Yuki, by Shinobu Nakayama. Yeah, so yeah, it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Oh my gosh, good for you.
And I got a lot of comments. I also I got permission to dub over someone's animations. He does. It's not really for kids. I'm going to describe it, but it's like 2D animations for video game characters.
That is so cool.
I got written permission from the content creator, and since I dub over his animations, a flock of his fans came to my channel, and all my videos went from like 88 views to one of my videos got 100,000 views.
That's amazing.
No money was made. It's just a lot of views.
Yet, you'll see.
Yeah, if I can.
People are going to see this video, and then you're going to be famous.
So, and I voiced one of the characters. He also voiced. I did a video of the content creator's video of what's it called, Mortal Kombat, and he voiced Johnny Cage. Although not the best, I said I still needed some of the voice.
Not
Hey,
the
you
best.
did
Hey,
good.
throw
You
this
did
guy under
good.
the bus.
You did good. You did good. And I also voiced Amy Rose, but I don't think my Amy Rose voice is great. But the most video that got the most views on my channel was when I voiced. If you played Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
There's a character named Juri Han that's like an evil version of Chun-Li. She's basically a Korean version of her, like more evil. And it's very seductive, like evil voice. And I did it because I listened to her voice and I tried to kind of replicate it, but give it my own. And I got so many positive comments saying, "I love your voice for Juri. Do it again. Do it. Do it."
But you like it. You're good.
Yeah, I don't want to do Juri's voice because it's kind of rusty.
That's okay. Well, I think we're actually ending anyways. But yeah.
Oh my God.
It's more like a line. Tuxedo Mask never said the line in the show, but it's a joke on the internet where he says, "My job here is done."
Yes.
And I would love for you just
Oh my God.
to for us, if that's
Totally.
okay.
My job here is done. I'm Tuxedo Mask. appreciate it. I have a lot to see here, and the fact that you took your time with me means a lot to me, and I really thank you very much. Go have fun. Go cause some trouble. That's what I say.
So your job here is
Thank you.